Hi guys, this is Dr. Jake Huebner with Colorado Muscle and Joint Clinic, and this is Pain to Profits.
Y'all want to get turned? I heard if you're trying to go climb to the top, I start from the bottom, it's kind of like putting on socks. Yeah, y'all ready or not? Don't let me get hot, though. Clean like a mop, whole world is shot. This pace gon' knock, this pace gon' rock. Y'all ready or not? Ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? Pay my dues, punch that clock. You ready or not? You ready or ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? You ready or not? Pay my dues, punch that clock. Ready or not? You ready or hey.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Pain to Profits. I'm your host, Samson, and every episode we are unpacking the knowledge, the wisdom, the roadblocks, and trying to impart wisdom on you guys so that you can save time and level up in your own business and your own journey in entrepreneurship. And today we're sitting down with my friend, Jake Huebner, who owns Colorado Muscle and Joint. He's also become a great friend, and he is a chiropractor and also has a physical therapy practice. And he's in growth mode right now. And it's been a couple years that you've been in business.
Yep.
Yeah, and so now you're making some big steps to really try to go to the next level. When you first start, you don't know what the heck you're doing.
Right, yeah.
You just kind of start figuring it out, man. But I appreciate you being here, and welcome to the show.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome, dude. Well, why don't you just tell everybody, what is Colorado Muscle and Joint?
Yeah, so it's kind of a more performance and rehabilitation chiropractic clinic.
Yeah.
So I'm not a physical therapist or anything. I'm a chiropractor, but I do a lot of physical therapy services. So not only will you get like the, chiropractic adjustment, but also, rehab exercises, dry needling, cupping, Graston, active release, trigger point therapy, kind of all that. So I work with a lot more athletes kind of rehabbing them because I never liked the traditional chiropractic model. I'll see you once a week for the rest of your life. Just come in and get adjusted. Just like never, as an athlete growing up, I just never felt like I saw a lot of progress that way. I always felt like, it felt good for a few days, but then I'm like back, and I didn't really understand the, science behind it, why it's beneficial. And then as I went to chiropractic school, I was, I wanted to be a chiropractor, but I knew I didn't want to do that model. And then as I learned more about chiropractic, I was getting nervous the first year because I was like, oh man, like, is this the only option, just to adjust people all the time?
Pop and go.
Yeah. And then there was a club called Rehab to Performance that you went to during lunches and stuff. There's a bunch of different clubs, so I'd go to that one all the time. And that one talked about like all the rehab stuff that I wanted to learn. I was like, oh man, this is awesome. So that, led me to meet a couple other kind of mentors who I kind of followed around to their different seminars and all this stuff, who would teach me something I love to do. Is called DNS, Dynamic Neuromuscular Stabilization, which is awesome. That, and then led me to dry needling and led me to just learn more about rehab. And I was like, oh man, this is what I want, to combine the two. And there's not really any chiropractors in Northern Colorado that do the kind of the combination of chiropractic and the physical therapy, So
Chiropractic definitely gets a bad rap for being a Band-Aid on an underlying problem.
Right.
As an athlete, I went to my first chiropractic treatment when I was 8 years old. Had a really bad neck injury, played sports my whole life.
Yeah.
And that chiropractor got it because he was a bodybuilder. And so chiropractic to him was a tool to put you back on the right path. But it's like, okay, if you're constantly having a problem, there's some sort of underlying dysfunction that we got to fix. And so that over the years, when you start, that's your first experience with chiropractic.
Yeah.
And then you get these other chiropractors that are just kind of like pop you and send you on your way. That's it.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I go to you and why I allow you to come into our facility is because there's a more longer term outlook on fix the problem. Like it's not to put a Band-Aid on it. So
and that takes obviously more time and a little more critical thinking, but it's also way more fulfilling because it's like it's just easy. I don't know. So I just always struggle with that, and especially you get some weird claims from chiropractors being like, oh man, I can cure. There actually been claims like I can help cure cancer by getting adjusted. I mean, sounds ridiculous, but there are some chiropractors out there who firmly believe that you have decreased your chance of getting cancer by getting adjusted, which is just kind of ridiculous.
I mean, I guess, dysfunction and inflammation, yes, like all those things go together, but that's a pretty...
It's such a small little piece of that whole entire the whole puzzle of that. But
you drink like alcohol, like a fish out of water, but you get chiropractic every week. It's like, avoid cancer.
And so I really like the more scientific based approach and more evidence based approach to it. Obviously, there's a line there where you can be so evidence based that you're ignoring things that other practitioners do that are helping people, that it's like, well, the evidence doesn't support that. But it's like, yeah, but these patients are seeing results and they're getting better. So it's like, can't really argue with that.
Yeah.
There's some stuff I just refuse to do as a chiropractor, like the activator.
Yeah,
little clicky, and
I know. I always thought that was a joke.
And X-rays and all that stuff. I just refuse to do all that. But you know.
But your practice is going to evolve, and so outside looking in, here's kind of what I've noticed is there are these stigmas about the business or about the industry, and you've been working hard to really figure out what your place is, because people come to you and they're like, "Oh, Colorado Muscle and Joint, you're a chiropractor. Will you pop my neck?" And you're like, "Well, yes, but let's go deeper. Let's understand." And so your pricing model is different. It doesn't necessarily align with the traditional like Chiro Now or something like that, because you're actually, you know, focused more on rehabilitation and trying to help people. And so that's the biggest transition that I've seen you make over the last year is you're starting to rethink your pricing model and your product and how you deliver that service. And actually doing it to the point where you're excluding certain people from coming to work with you, which can be a little scary.
Yeah, like just yesterday, a lady calls me and she works in the building right across my office. So she's always seen Colorado Muscle and Joint. She looked it up and, oh, he's a chiropractor. So she calls me yesterday and is like, hey, my neck feels like tweak and I just come in for an adjustment. And I had to explain, you know, like I don't, you know, traditionally do that. Like I don't just adjust patients. I take a more of a, you know, the first appointment's an hour long. Then after that, it's 45 minutes, and here are the prices and all that stuff. And so, and then I, you know, she obviously wasn't very interested in that. She was like, okay, but I was also on the patients that I'm looking for, you know, because if I start to be like, oh, you know what, I'll take her. I want that, you know, that money right now, and I'll just adjust her and charge her half of what I would normally charge something. I used to do that kind of stuff, and then I realized, you know, then those people refer people who are like, who also just want the adjustment, you know.
And you want the referral, just not that referral.
Yeah, just not that referral, you know, and they don't get the results that I am looking for or that they're looking for necessarily. And so I told her, I was like, hey, I know a couple of clinics that just do the adjustments and they're pretty reasonably priced. So here's like, I'll email. So I just emailed her different clinics, you know, and she was way more appreciative of that. And I think that built value in what I do too. Because I wasn't just like,
yeah, because when it becomes a chronic issue, she's going to go, oh, okay, I actually need like real rehab to get this figured out.
Yeah, because the biggest thing is I just truly want to help anybody that comes to me looking for help, even if it means referring them to somebody else when I know that like, hey, this isn't what I really do, or this is what I specialize in. And that's where a lot of chiropractors kind of get caught up too, is they think they can help anything. Yeah. It's like there's sometimes where it's like you need to go see either, you know, a physical therapist, or you need to go see an MD or your primary care or something like that. Just kind of knowing when to, you know, not help somebody in that way. Well, help them, but not in the traditional way you think. But yeah,
totally. So I know your dad. He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Has he always been a business owner?
Yeah. I mean,
for as long as you can remember.
Ever since I was born, he was. Yeah. I mean, I think he started Huebner. Well, it was Huebner Peterson, which was my uncle. And then now it's Huebner Marketing. And ever since, since he started it, since my oldest sister, Abby, she's 33, ever since I think she was a baby, he started it. So as long as I can remember, he's owned his own business. Yeah.
So when you were going to chiropractic school, was that always like, I'm going to go own my own practice?
Yeah. I've always wanted to, you know, kind of own my own business for sure down the road. And there's times where I was like, oh, I just want the security, air quotes around security, of just working a 9 to 5. But then I was like, oh, I just hate the feeling of being stuck somewhere and like having a ceiling, you know, and it's like, I just don't want to have like that ceiling over me. And so when I went to chiropractic school, I was like, well, I'll just be an associate after I graduate for like 3 years. So I lived in Kansas City at the time. So I went to school in St. Louis, moved to Kansas City for about 8 months, and was just going to work at this place called Fit Muscle and Joint Clinic, which is an awesome clinic. And they do a lot of what I do now, and they help kind of inspire me to start a Colorado Muscle and Joint Clinic. I was living out there, and I was like, I'll just work here for 3 years, and then once I am more comfortable treating patients, then I'll start my own, you know. And then I just had a feeling, I was like, gosh, I feel like the longer I wait, the less likely I'll do it.
Yeah, it's never the right time.
Yeah, because you get comfortable and all that stuff. Then my dad, so my main clinic is in his building that he owns in Loveland. And he calls me one day. He's like, hey, because I was getting probably the next 5 months I was going to graduate. He was like, hey, one of the tenants in my building just moved out because of COVID. You know, they were just like, oh, we don't need this much space. We can do a lot of this stuff from home, you know. Right. So they moved out. He's like, I'll give you a good deal on rent for the first year.
That's the hookup right there.
Yeah, he said if you decide to move back out here. And, you know, so I thought it over and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I was like, I may as well. I mean, it's going to be hard, but I didn't really think about that. I was just kind of like, oh man, this is like what I really wanted to do.
Yeah, it was an opportunity to take the leap and make the transition in a somewhat safe way.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing is, you know, I definitely was pretty blessed in starting my own practice and how it was hard. It's still hard at times. And I'd say it's harder now than it was before because like I just had such a good setup at the very beginning and it was an easy way to kind of get started and stuff. For some people who start the practice, it's just like brutal from the get-go. Yeah. You know, and mine was like still really difficult, more difficult than just being an associate. Not in my mind, being an associate. I just don't like working for other people.
Yeah,
yeah. But I think, I just there's a lot of stuff that God kind of put in place to make it a lot easier for me to kind of start the practice, get it going, and lived with my parents for 6 months, you know, so I didn't have to worry about paying rent somewhere else. Worked at a walk-in clinic. I'm called Chiro now, one in Greeley, one in Fort Collins.
That was just to tie you over.
Yeah, and that
while
just
you got
helped
everything off the ground.
That honestly just helped pay the bills, and so I made some sort of money, and I could pay for, you know, some sort of marketing or whatever. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff that just worked out really well. Because obviously, walk-in clinics is not at all what I want to do. It's pretty much opposite of what I do.
60 patients a day.
But at the same
for
time,
5 minutes.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing. Sometimes it's even quicker than that. I mean, it's just like someone comes in, just like, I just want my neck adjusted, nothing else, and she adjusts it. And
like, God, great, thank you.
Yeah. But I think after doing that, I did see the value in some of that stuff because some people, like college kids and high school kids, who just can't afford, you know, to get that. Like, honestly, going to a walk-in clinic is better than nothing. You know, getting that treatment, and it's so cheap. You know, it's $25-$30 just to get adjusted. So I saw the value in that, and it got me. One thing I didn't really think about is it got me really good at adjusting. So I mean, when you're adjusting 40 patients in 4 hours, it's just like, I mean, it's hard not to get really good at adjusting. So that there's definitely some stuff I was like, I hated it, but then I realized kind of coming out of it, I was like, wow, that was actually a huge blessing. So I got honed my skills as a chiropractor. And it allowed me to just kind of meet more people who were maybe coming there for an adjustment, but realize I was like, yeah, you need more than just an adjustment. There's some serious stuff going on. So I'd give, you know, my boss was awesome. He would just let me give cards to people for my clinic.
That's cool.
Yeah, because that's the one in Greeley. He's like, you're not going to compete with me. So
yeah, and he knew that he couldn't provide that service.
Right. Well, and it's like totally different patient populations usually. I mean, it's like people coming in for just an adjustment. Typically, you know, 1 out of maybe 30 people I'd give a card to because it's like, this is more
have you thought about in your own business using that as a loss leader, like having a form of a walk-in clinic with, and I think right now that probably sounds crazy just because.
No, I've thought about that.
Because it's you, right? So how do you do that and then give like the, you know, longer, more
I know. Well, so I thought about just like, what if just Saturday mornings, you know, 8 to noon, I just, hey, you guys, anybody can come in and get adjusted, you know? So I've thought about that, just having set Saturdays. So then people who can't afford the, you know, the 175 to 150 visits, you know, can, you know, come in. And then if they ever are like, hey, I want to do like the full rehab stuff, then we can do that.
Yeah, it's reciprocity because, you know, there might come a time where maybe right now it's like, you know, I turned funny to go look at the TV screen or something and tweaked my neck.
Yeah.
But then I have a real injury, you know, I get into a car accident or something like that. And they're going to be, man, Jake's always taking care of me.
Yeah.
You know, so that's more like long game type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think you could easily do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I would have to just, so I think what I struggled with before was when I would do that kind of stuff, then people would kind of nickel and dime you, but also they would be like, I would maybe do a little bit of muscle work when they came in to get adjusted instead of just being an adjustment.
Yeah.
So then they'd be like, oh, well, you know, he'll still do the muscle work versus like, so then I got stuck of being like, well, crap, I can't charge. I'm doing all this stuff. Yeah. And I should be charging this. And I'm only charging this because I got carried away. Just being like, oh, man, I really want to work on this. But
it's kind of like how we, with the gym model, we do free boot camps in the summer. Yeah. Every Saturday. Run 80 to 100 people through there. Some people just come to the boot camp and take advantage of that. Yeah. Never become a member. But if I get 10% of those people to convert,
for sure,
it's totally worth it, right?
Yeah.
And it's really just giving our time away. You know, the gym is the perfect time at the gym to do that. So I think that same strategy would work for you. And then then you have this little carrot for naturally progressing them up the ladder to a higher ticket service or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's cool that you mentioned that too. Cause I've always thought about like, what if I do that, but just like on a Saturday. Cause I think Saturdays where people are most available too. So
yeah. Or you
cool.
do it like here where you come and you set up and you just do it at other places. So
I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago.
So you can attract people to come to you as a long-term client.
Yeah. Doing that a couple times a month or something like that, or just come in and just adjust people.
What's been the biggest challenge just getting started over the last couple of years?
I think it's just getting patients in the door. I think and realizing how much of a salesman I actually have to be, which sounds weird as a chiropractor. So you got there's a fine line between being too much of a salesman and too little of a salesman. Because if you can't, you got to be able to like still close deals as a chiropractor. Like especially if you're selling like these 6, 10, 12 visit packages, that are $1,400 plus. Like that's you got to just help them see the value in it, And I think a lot of that is just me explaining what I do and how I can help them. I think that's what I would do before is I would just book a patient and wouldn't even talk to them beforehand. I'd just wait to talk to them until they got there. And then I realized as I've been working with this marketing team that I told you about, that I kind of follow this script now that I came up with that, I have a 15, 20-minute conversation as I get a new lead before they even come in, and saying, hey, just seeing if it's a good fit, seeing what they're looking for in like a chiropractor / like a physical therapy setting. Have they ever been to one? Explaining the injury that they have and seeing if, explain to them, hey, this can take usually, depending on what it is, like, 8 to 12 visits or something. And just laying everything out and then also helping them understand the value in it instead of just seeing a chiropractor or just seeing a physical therapist and kind of what the benefit of having both of those provides. And even mentioning some of my credentials is just like, did powerlifting. I do some bodybuilding. I've always played in sports, so I understand the injuries that you have. And I've had pretty much every injury that they come in with, I've had. And so I think that helps build the value, as you talk to them on the phone. It gets them excited for the first visit. I mean, it's crazy now as I've kind of followed that script, how many of them are like, oh, man, I'm so excited to see you on Friday, versus before. People come in, they're a little hesitant and stuff. But if they can hear the doctor talking to them and maybe even like see them beforehand and have this conversation with them, it makes a huge difference. And I think that's where I struggled before. That was a big obstacle was I wasn't a great salesman. I was just like, oh, I feel bad charging this, Yeah. And because before I wasn't as confident, so I didn't think, is this really worth what I'm charging,
Well, in the absence of value, everything's expensive.
Yeah.
Right. So like, if I told you that if you had to come up with $25,000 tomorrow or you're going to lose your leg, like you're going to figure out how to come up with $25,000 like real quick. Right?
I know. Well, and that's the thing that I think I didn't realize how much like pressure is such a, privilege, which there's a bodybuilder that'll take his whole quote, so shout out to Chris Bumstead. But like pressure is truly a privilege because it pushes you to, like I could have stayed working at that walking clinic forever and been like, oh, I'm comfortable doing this, I'm just going to keep it, versus like you drop that and all of a sudden I'm like, crap, I got to come up with an extra $4,000 a month, to help pay for everything. And then all of a sudden I start calling patients and I start getting these new leads, and all of a sudden I've made that up in like a few days, it's like, oh man, that's amazing.
I think there's a nugget in that I just want to unpack for the audience, which is a lot of times there's a great book called The E-Myth. Have you read that book?
Mm-mm.
You should read it.
Okay.
It's basically says that most people who start businesses are not entrepreneurs. They're technicians. They're really good at their specific craft. So they get really excited about the product and the service that they're going to deliver without a lot of thought around like, how am I going to get clients? What's my sales model? What's my sales process? What's my offer? What's my guarantee? How am I going to generate actual lead flow?
Right.
And am I going to do that? Am I equipped to do that? Do I need to hire a salesperson? Right. What's my commission structure? Right. They haven't even thought that far. So they're so excited about, I'm just going to be so much better than everybody that they're just going to think I'm so dope and they're just going to come.
That was me.
Yeah. And that's not uncommon. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's the trap. And a lot of what we're trying to get across with the podcast is that there's 8 real key things you need to be focused on, right? You got to focus on the product for sure. You got to focus on the service and the delivery, but you got to be focused on the sales and the marketing and eventually the leadership and the growth and finance and managing your cash flow. Those are things that nobody teaches you because you said it before we got on the pod, But you spent 8 years in school. So what was your undergrad?
So like, what I major in?
What'd you major in? Yeah.
Yeah. So exercise science or
exercise science.
kinesiology.
Then you went to chiropractic school.
Was 3.5 years.
3.5 years. And how much business school did you get during those 3.5 years?
One class in trimester 7 or 8 or something like that. So 10 trimesters. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it was some guy who owned a practice, like, and he was like 75 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, he doesn't have any other practices. I think it's just him. I don't think he has any other chiropractors. So it's not really like
he's not a business owner.
No,
he's not an entrepreneur. He's a sole proprietor.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a glorified job. Mm-hmm. And that guy's giving you wisdom on, how to run your practice.
Yeah. And it was more like how to avoid malpractice pretty much. Yeah. than it was like business. Like, don't do something stupid. Yeah. So, which is helpful, but also at the same time, it's like, he's just talking about, he spends multiple weeks just on talking about, taxes and when you pay somebody and here's what it looks like, and it's like, okay, I could watch a YouTube video on this from somebody who like really knows.
Irrelevant. Hire a bookkeeper, a payroll person.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So
awesome. So you mentioned a little bit earlier you hired a consulting firm to help you.
Yep.
Can we walk through that? How did you get to that point in deciding that you needed some outside help?
Yeah.
And what was it specifically about that group that was so attractive to you?
Yeah. So this last year, I was seeing some pretty good growth the last, 2 years, pretty steady. And then I went through divorce this year, and for 4 months straight, I was like not trying to grow the practice at all. I wasn't recording. I used to record all this content and put it up on, YouTube and Instagram, and people would love it. And I would get new patients from that, like a week, one or two patients a week from just doing that. But then, I went through that.
Got rocked.
Yeah, I got rocked. And then so for 4 months straight, I was just like, I was working at walking clinic, and that's what I relied on. And I was just like still treating patients in my office, but it wasn't super busy. And I was just
trying to
survive,
And that is going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's, we can get into that later. I'll let you go. But that's one of the advantages of growing employees and staff and not having it all rely on you.
I know, and that's what I kind of came to the realization of is talking with my dad and some other people, and I was just kind of like, I got to get this, systems in place and have things more automated to where I just take a lot less time out of my day to book a patient, or to. Yeah, so eventually I want to have 3 or 4 clinics eventually in northern Colorado, but I don't want to be, having to be there all day every day, even at one of the clinics. Obviously I'll check in or stuff, but that's the end goal. So I kind of realized, man, if I don't do something now, at the end of the 4 months, as I kind of move past everything, and I was kind of like, gosh, Lord, like what do I do with my practice? Should I keep doing it? Should I just sell the practice and just work at Chiro now because it's comfortable and all that stuff? And I was
that's the devil's best
work. I know.
Trying to convince you you're not capable.
I know. And I talked to my dad, and my dad just pretty much was like, I'm not going to let you do that. That's like the dumbest thing. Yeah. It's the dumbest thing ever.
We all need those people in our life.
Yeah. And he's been awesome, and
he's an entrepreneur. He gets it. Like he's probably been in that position before. This is one of the hard things when you make that transition from being like employed to being an entrepreneur is your circle tends to be a lot of employed people.
Yeah.
Now you're crazy.
Yeah.
Quick, get out of that circle, go surround yourself with a bunch of entrepreneurs, and you won't sound so crazy anymore.
Yeah, right. I know, and that's how many people have been like, gosh, you're only 28 and you have your own business. I'm like, gosh, I feel like I'm way behind, but it's just depending on who you talk to. But yeah, so talking to my dad, he's really honest with me. He's like, if it's too hard for you, it's hard, but if it's too hard for you, you can just work at Chiro now. And it's just like,
if you're soft.
Yeah. And I was like,
Dad.
gosh, yeah. So he's just honest with me. And, so now that's when I realized, okay, I got to like step it up. And I know that marketing is obviously my dad owning a marketing firm, and my sister and brother.
He's probably insulted.
Yeah.
Marketing.
Oh, he has. Yeah. Yeah. And because he's just been.
And does Abby work there too?
Yeah. Abby works there. And then her husband, Ryan.
Oh,
he works
so
there
they're
too.
just like, Jake, what are you doing?
And they're not, my family's not the type of people who are just going to like, they're just going to wait till you realize how stupid you are kind of thing. And so I realized it. And then I was, I got to do something. And then so, I was talking to Abby and Ryan and my dad was just like, I'd love if you used Abby because but she's like, she does ads for a living. But at the same time, she's like, if you can find somebody who specializes with chiropractors and physical therapists and stuff, that'd be the best. And so I was talking to my buddy's Brady. He's owns Upslope PT in Fort Collins. He's a great guy, and he just started his practice in the last year, and he's busier than I am. And I'm like, dude, how'd you get so busy? And he's like, well, I started working with this team called the Clinical Marketer, and they have a clinic that sees like $1 million a year. It's like 7-figure practice, and it's just insane. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I started doing research on it. I was like, this looks pretty legit, and it was a little expensive up front, but then it's like, who wouldn't pay $7,000 for $30,000? At the beginning.
There's the ROI, and they have a killer guarantee, right?
Yeah, it's guaranteed $30,000 in the first 3 months you're working with them, and if you don't, they continue to work with you until they can earn you that. Yeah. Obviously there's some stipulations that you have to do the work, you have to do these certain things, put these things in place. So it took a lot of work. I had to kind of revamp my whole website and implement Google Pixel, all this other stuff that just took time.
Yeah, but they're helping you shore up the core concepts, right? They're helping you get your sales and your marketing funnel, your scripting, your offer, your guarantee, your product packaging, all put together so that it's easier for you to sell. It's almost like Alex Hormozi's like irresistible offer, right?
Well, and that's the thing is they help so much. Not only have me see the value in what I do. So I first told him, he was like, I'm a chiropractor, but I do a lot of this stuff. And he was like, how are you not more busy? And I'm just like, dude, I've lost a lot of confidence, especially the last 4 months, 5 months. I just lost so much confidence in myself. Yeah. And so I was just like, and so he was like, dude, he's like, this is better than like what a lot of physical therapy clinics offer. So he's like, you can make a killing. You just have to be confident what you do, set up these automated things and
package it appropriately
and be able to just, one thing that I am good at is just talking to people. Like that's the one thing that
the gift of gab. You don't have a problem with that.
Yeah. I can always talk to any stranger and really find something I relate to them,
That's probably also some of the value in just doing 50 adjustments a day.
Right,
Lots of small talk.
Gosh, yeah. Like some people walk in, I'm like, I'm not gonna have a single thing in common, but I start asking questions and I can relate to them in some way. And
you are great at that.
Yeah. And so I think that has helped because it's like, I may not be the smartest physical therapist or chiropractor in the world, which I know I'm not, because there's some guys who I graduated with where I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're like brainiacs. But one thing that I think helps as a chiropractor, and I think you can be the dumbest chiropractor, but if you can talk to people,
charisma,
and just be good at, that's the thing. You just have to also be good. You can talk to people, but if you suck at adjusting as a chiropractor, even if you're great at all the rehab stuff, if you're not great adjuster in your chiropractor, you got to be just good at that. And so I think, but if you can talk to people, I mean, you'll be busy. That's the thing. Is if you're personable, talk to people, and you're not weird, you can hold a conversation.
So you these guys, and I would agree, because what I see a lot, and I came from the agency world in marketing, and people would come to us, hire us to do marketing for them as if that was going to fix their problem.
Yeah.
And the disconnect was always, we could generate a lead and they couldn't close it, or we didn't fully take the time to understand their offer and package it up in a way to sell it or market it appropriately. And so the quality of the lead coming across the table. So there was always the passing the baton, the handoff was fumbled.
Yeah.
And there'd be a few that would come through. And every now and again, you would get somebody that was a more seasoned entrepreneur or a killer salesperson. That was like their default position. You match that up with good marketing and they could, sell anything, right?
Exactly.
Like say, I sell ISO and Eskimo, and those people always did really well. And so it was like, well, what's the disconnect? The disconnect is you got to have somebody who comes in. This is where consulting is valuable. That can actually look at the whole picture. And if they have an expertise in that niche, man, that's even better. So good on you for making that decision.
Yeah. I obviously ran it by my dad. I was like, is this a good idea? I mean, it's $7,000, and is that a good idea? And he was like, yeah. He's like, if they're guaranteeing $30,000, who wouldn't pay $7,000 for $30,000, even if it's over 3 months? It's like insane. Yeah. And so, yes, that's been just cool working with them. I mean, they do all the SEO. They're revamping my website.
But they're also teaching you to be competent and proficient in doing a lot of
ads,
stuff on your own.
So they teach you how to do the Facebook ads. And so in the future, if I want to do it, I know exactly how to do it.
Right.
Then you have checkup calls with them every 2 weeks after you run the ads, just see if hey, this ad sucks and it's not doing anything. So let's get rid of this one and try a new one.
To help you optimize.
Yep. And so right now I have like a headache, like sciatica, and a shoulder ad. And the shoulder one's just like, I'll probably get 2 or 3 leads a day just from the shoulder one. Just guys.
You're getting leads right now while we're talking.
Yeah, probably. No, but it's crazy. And so it's just,
yeah, you got to figure out which one's the right one.
Right. Yeah. And how to word certain things. Like there's like, we had one, I guess it's kind of funny. One of the ads was just said, they targeted, like certain ads are targeted towards women or men, you know? Yeah. And, so one of them was just like, it said, "Hey ladies of Fort Collins," you know, it's just, so they choose pictures, and one of them, the picture is just of me standing there. And so it's kind of like,
all stud.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird.
Hey ladies of Fort Collins. Yeah. I'm a single, incredibly amazing chiropractor. That's the ad.
And so, it's
that easy.
And so a lady commented on the ad and was like,
I'll get it just about it.
Yeah. I have some weird stories, but no, but she commented and it was just like, I feel like everybody would benefit from this service. You know, why are you just targeting women? And I was like, I kind of like agreed with her. I was like, all right, whatever. You know, I don't really care what people comment. I kind of thought about it. I was like, it is kind of a weird thing. So it's just stuff like that. I messaged the people at Clinical Mark. I was like, is this weird? They're like, yeah, let's adjust it.
Yeah.
You know, so we adjusted to just, hey, Fort Collins. And it's been doing better, you know, because it's just like, because if a guy comes across it, it's like, oh, well, it's targeted towards, you know, but it is targeted towards women in the actual ad, so mostly women.
We do something similar, where we target men and women just to see the groups and see how they're performing, but then try to keep it location specific,
right,
especially because we don't have a preference. Oddly enough, though, like the video that we choose will dictate whether or not we get more conversions from women or men.
Isn't that
so
crazy?
There's more women in the video. On the women ad, then we'll get more women. We'll get less men. So, you know, all those things, nobody teaches you that.
Right.
You just have to experience it and then learn how to optimize the ad accordingly. Right. You can't change everything at once. You know, you went from removing "Hey ladies" to just "Hey Fort Collins," right? Yeah. And then you let it run and see how it goes.
Yeah, see how it goes. Yeah. But yeah, the shoulder one's the better one so far. But so I loved working with them. I mean, they're awesome. They just put out so many videos a day or a week just talking about, you know, hey, here's some good sales strategies for you. Here's some good, you know, try this in your practice next time. Try, you know, like one thing I never thought about was just framing all the, like, so I have 35-star reviews on Google. No big deal, you know. And so he said you should just get little frames and just hang those up in like on a wall in the office. And I'm thinking that's like, that seems weird. But he's like, that's what we do at our office, and it works. It gives new patients, if they're waiting, it gives them something to look at, and then they can read about like, oh man, I know somebody who's dealing with what that person said. Yeah, I should send them in. You know,
and they can just see it's a third party referral. It's a third party recommendation, so it's better than you saying, look how awesome I am.
Yeah. So but
that's good.
Yeah,
I need to write you a review, so I owe you one of those.
Haven't you? I thought you did.
I don't think I did.
Come on. You're like,
dude, send me the link. Where's your automated marketing? Dude, for my post visit.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you say the automated. So if someone doesn't respond to our automations, like the only problem is it sends out a lot of automated text after a while. So this one lady, she responds to the lead. She goes, "Sorry, this is just too many messages." And so I was like, "All right." So I lost lead because it was like
you lost one.
Yeah, one out of the 6 that I've had. But it's just funny how
I don't like being healthy.
Yeah. But it is funny how some people that bothers somebody. It's too many. You're trying to help too much. Sorry.
It is important though. There's this gap between when they actually convert to when they actually show up. You need to be able to nurture that. In order to get them in the door.
Right.
I think they say for every, I can't remember the exact statistics, but something along the lines, for every hour that they sit and are not contacted when they first convert, they're like 10% less likely to actually show up.
My dad told me that this morning because I was like, I just got a new lead. I stopped by my parents' house with my mom something. And I was talking to my dad, and I was like, I just got a new lead. He's like, you gonna call him right now? I was like, well, no, I gotta go. And he goes,
you better get on the phone.
Yeah. And he said, it's like the first, I think it drops by 10% in the first like 10 minutes that you don't, and then after that, it's like the hour thing that you said.
Yeah.
That if you don't call them, there's a 9% less likely chance that they'll convert to a patient.
My brother-in-law always said leads age like mayonnaise in the sun. They go quick.
Yeah, I know. Because you don't know what else they're looking at. What if they found like, oh, well, this guy, he's available right now, and I might go see him, or something like that. That stuff can kind of happen. But
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What's the you alluded to it earlier, but
Mm-hmm.
you want to have 3 to 4 clinics in northern
Yep.
Colorado. That's the 10-year plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you have to get done in the next 3 years to be on pace for that 10-year plan?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, so I have like certain patient goals per week that I want to see to be able to like hire somebody.
Yeah.
And I think, 35 to 40 patients consistently a week at the prices that I'm not at the old prices. Old prices, I'd have to see like 50 or 60, probably more than that. But at the price that I'm at now, probably 35 to 40, that would be at about most I could handle on my own. That'd be so full.
And that would be your point when you need to hire
Yeah,
somebody.
hire somebody. And before I even hire another chiropractor or physical therapist, I'll hire someone just to run the like front desk and receptionist and all that stuff. But
Will they sell for you too?
yeah, so that's the one thing is
You need to hire a salesperson, not an admin.
I know, and that's the one thing I thought about is like, they want to talk to the doctor, but at the same time, this morning there's a good example. I had stuff to do. I was busy. I couldn't call this guy right now and have a 15-20 minute conversation. But if I have somebody who's like a salesperson who gets also a notification when there's a new lead and can call them right away and run through the script and book them for me, that just saves so much time.
Yeah, I don't. They don't. It doesn't need to be the doc. They just
Right.
need to be able to articulate it because they'll actually do better because you have the curse of knowledge, right? You know too much.
Yeah.
Like I love your content and I get it. I got a degree in physiology and
Yeah,
master's in
I know.
sports nutrition,
I
right?
tend to-
And so you'll just be like, oh, this is like really good content, and it'll be like 4 likes. And
Yeah.
then you'll like hit one of you like doing like a lat pull down or something. It's like 100 likes.
Yeah, I know.
It's like everybody knows that dude's jacked. He probably knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like when you post content, it's like the fine line of, like being too descriptive of stuff. Like when I'm about to make a post about like IT bound syndrome, and if I'm going into like all the structures around it, people are like, "All right, next thing."
Just
I
tell
don't
me how
care.
to fix it.
Yeah, just tell me how to fix it. Yeah. And so that's what I did at the beginning. I would just explain all the anatomy, the biomechanics of how this works. And my mom and dad were both just like, "This is the most boring thing ever." like it's helpful, whatever. If you're, an anatomy person or a chiropractor, physical
Yeah, if you're
therapist, it's great.
educating other chiropractors.
Yeah, but if I'm trying to talk to patients, can you patients me talking about all the
Yeah.
ins and outs of the IT band and the glute and all that stuff, then it's like, all right,
Yeah.
But,
Less is more. So you got to get, obviously, you got to get to, 30, 40 patients a week. Then you can get a new front desk person to help offload that.
Yeah.
Hum there, hire a new chiro to come work with you. And then at what point do you transition over to another clinic?
Yeah, I think if me and that other practitioner can be seeing about 35 patients a week consistently at that clinic, then I think I'd want to, I don't know fully, but I think I'd want to have at least 2 people at each clinic. And so my thought is I have one clinic, and if that's seeing 35 to 40, I'd like to have, and I'm still working there, then I'd like to have another person kind of take over where I'm at, open another clinic. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, but that's kind of what I'm thinking.
You'll get there. I mean, it's probably revenue based.
Mm-hmm.
As you're still growing, you still have to discover what your operating expense ratio is going to be because you just don't totally know yet.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of pay people more than the market if you can afford to do it.
Yeah.
Especially like you said, most chiropractors cap at like 60 to 70. If you can figure out a way for them to make 100, you got chiropractors for life.
Oh,
if you
yeah.
do that. So you get that figured out, and then once you get accuracy before speed, like once you get the model dialed, then go replicate. But do you know F45?
Yeah.
So F45 has 1,750 locations in national or internationally. They have 600 in the United States,
Oh my gosh.
and they're dying on the vine because
Really?
they scale too fast. Their stock opened up, IPO, they got to $22, and it dropped to $1.
Oh my gosh.
And all their technology was failing, their systems were failing because they just grew too fast and they didn't have the internal team to support it. So they were clearly focused on how do we make a bunch of money and scale as quick or grow as quickly as possible, not scale as quickly as possible. And the difference is scaling your technologies and your systems allow you to increase revenue without increasing expenses. Growth is my my expenses and my revenue go up
Right.
at the same time.
Mhm.
And so they got caught in that trap, and their clinics are closing down left and right.
Mhm.
So if you can get to $1 million on a location and then start opening another one, you have a solid business that will
Right.
sustain any kind of economic shifts or
Right.
turmoil or whatever
Mhm.
it may be.
Yeah, and I totally agree, because I want to be able to, like, you just look at like Subway is a good example. I mean, it's just a copy and paste
Yeah.
each Subway, you know, and
Copy and
that's
paste is the way to say it. Yeah.
yeah, and that's like kind of what I want. You know, Carter Muscle and Joint. You go to our location in Loveland versus our location in Fort Collins, and it's like the same. There's
Yep.
not like this is the same place. You know, it's
Yeah.
like it looks the same.
McDonald's French fry.
Yeah, exactly. There's
McDonald's French fry in Scotland's the same as it
yeah,
is here in
like the
America.
walls are painted the same color. You know, everything's kind of in the same place, just so it doesn't feel that different. But also having all that stuff automated. The biggest thing is like that part's easy, making the building look the same. You know, but also like having practitioners is going to be probably one of the tougher things, who have the same vision that I do
Yep.
and truly care about, you know, that hour to 45 minutes or 45 minutes to an hour that you're with that patient. They care about, okay, I'm really trying to like fix this person and help them and give them knowledge and education versus like, oh man, when am I done? And when
Well,
can I,
dude,
you know?
I don't think it's going to be as hard as you think, because I know there's a lot of chiros that are like you
Mhm.
that hate the model of like chiro now, like
Mhm.
crack them and send them on their way. And so they need you to figure that out, and you need them.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
you know, and that's the hard part about entrepreneurship is you might get into something because you really love doing it.
hmm
But eventually, if you want to grow a real business, you got to delegate and get up above that and run the company
Right.
so that the people down below can,
hmm
you know, operate the day-to-day stuff
Right.
too. So, you know, make sure you're thinking about that as well as you go.
Yeah. And that's the stuff that's been more on my mind recently, especially after me with the clinical marketing people.
Yeah.
They get you thinking more about that stuff. And it's like the more you can delegate, the better, because the more you can spend time on stuff that
On the business instead of
yeah,
in the business.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what are your biggest roadblocks in the next year?
I think probably just like the maintaining the momentum that I have and building on that and not getting comfortable. It's like, oh sweet, you know, I made a bunch of money this month, you know, I could take it easy. And that's where I've kind of failed in the past, was like, oh, I did really well this month. And then the next month's way slower because I didn't build on top of that momentum. Be like, oh man, you know, I called these 12 patients and I got 4 of them to book. And it's like, why am I not doing that like every other day, you know, or every day, you know? Instead I'd be like, oh sweet, I got 3 to book, you know. Then I tend to like, okay, sweet, you know, I feel good now. And then a week goes by and I haven't done that same thing, you know. I think
Yeah,
so.
I mean,
I think
just
building that
like
momentum.
piece of wisdom there. That's just a sign that you need to move quicker to hire an admin type person that can handle those phone calls.
Yeah, and then I think that's something I want to do in the next 6 months is hire somebody to take the phone calls and to call people, and pretty much just their job be to talk to a lot of the patients I spend so much time talking to.
Yeah.
When I could be, you know, doing other things that would help grow the business. And
100%.
yeah.
All right, so I want to pivot one slightly to more on the personal financial side.
Mm-hmm.
As you're making money, you're growing the business, you're obviously recapitalizing the business, keep it growing, but how are you diversifying out away from the business? Have you thought about that? What's the long game strategy there towards, you know, creating optionality for yourself in the future to sell, franchise, acquire other clinics, potentially create a business opportunity
Yeah.
for other people?
Yeah, I think I've thought a little bit about partnering. There's different physical therapists and stuff in the area that I was like, man, I wonder if I, you know, partner with them in some way, because we do either similar things, something like that. I've thought about that, but I also thought about what I want to do. You know, having my end goal would be, you know, have these 3 or 4 clinics and then sell the Carter Muscle and Joint brand to somebody. You know, that'd be
Or franchise it.
or franchise it. Yeah, because
Or
I think
you could do like the Chick-fil-A model, where Chick-fil-A is basically sells the operating lease to the business, and then Chick-fil-A owns the clinic. They own everything inside of it. They own the real estate. They have a regional team that kind of oversees and makes sure everything's operating. But then this person that operates it gets the cash flow from running the business.
Okay. Yeah, and something like that, because I even thought about in the future potentially maybe changing the name Carter Muscle and Joint so I can go more out of state, you know, and franchise it a little more and have different clinics somewhere. But again, I think now I just want to have the, you know, 3 to 4 clinics, maybe even 5 in Colorado, and then maybe even like what you said, like franchise that, build that. The hard thing, what I don't want to lose is the quality of the. Sometimes you lose that when you franchise it and you get just more and more.
I'm gonna push back though.
Okay,
let's just look at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
52 straight years they've been in business. They've been through like 7 recessions, and they've managed to increase their revenue every single year. One single franchise does 3 times more revenue than the average McDonald's does.
Yeah.
How is that? It's because they've just figured out how to systematize their quality. So you can do it. Don't let that stop you. So if that's the vision, like make that the vision.
Right.
You know what I mean? And don't sell yourself short, and then just be aggressive and towards pursuing that. But,
yeah, and that's always helpful to hear, because I think that's what I just told you. That's always my struggle, is like, oh man, well there's this and then this and then
we do that. It's easy, right? Like, oh, it's just the seasonality of it all. It's like, no, stop. Don't
then
do
that like makes your vision grow a little smaller, and be like, okay, I'll work on that. And then you find something wrong with that little vision, so your vision gets smaller,
and then you're stuck with the keep it small, keep it all kind of mindset.
Yeah, right.
And never grow, and you can't. It actually gets easier as it gets bigger. The bigger it is, the easier it is to operate if you've taken the time at the outset, accuracy before speed, to dial in your systems and process. So you said copy paste and build the next one. So you can manage quality, because if you were truly at the top, overseeing the franchisee team and the regional team and coming in and monitoring the quality, it's not an issue.
Right.
You know what
I
I
mean? That's a good point. No, yeah. That's always helpful to hear, because I tend to I never like doubt myself. I'm very confident in what I do, and like I'm good at what I do, but I think I tend to just overthink some certain things that don't necessarily need to be overthought. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Well, I mean, like being a great entrepreneur is like one part practical, pragmatic, and one part idealist, right? And it's the balance between those two things that I think makes really good operators and really good like lifestyle business type people. There are those like extreme visionaries that see way crazy out into the future, but they suck at execution.
Yeah.
Right. And then the opposite side of that, you have like super pragmatic people, and those people aren't really entrepreneurs. So you got to be a good mix of the two. And you'll have 10 ideas a week, and 9 of them are garbage. But
yeah, well, that's like a lot of what I do. Is I was telling my girlfriend Riley, I was like, I should have like so many ideas a day. Like there's so many things I want to do, and I have ideas, whether it's for my business or random stuff, like the supplement company. Yeah. Like, I just was like, one day I was like, I want to start a supplement company. So then I started Wild Oak Supplements within like the next few months, and obviously I didn't know what I was doing. So I just started it. And I think there could have been more of that. Well,
it just comes back to, why are you doing that?
Exactly.
What's the end game? What are you hoping to accomplish? Because I think sometimes we do it because we think it would be cool, or we could sell these additionally, but does it align with the vision? This is why you'll hear me talk about it all the time. It is so important to have a crystal clear 10-year vision for where you're going, and then back into everything that you're doing, down to like living your life in 90-day increments, and then going back to the drawing board and saying, is this still aligned with the vision?
Yeah.
And so how are you collecting those ideas and storing them? Because those ideas are great. You just need to be able to say, hey, this is great, not right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think the supplement company was bad timing. And also like I didn't have I started on about $3,000, and versus like
housing, all that stuff is so expensive.
One, like you think about like BPN's a good example. Like he started, and he felt like he hardly had any money. He started with 20 grand. And I'm like, oh man, if I would have had 20 grand, but it's like, but
are you trying to be BPN?
Yeah. What?
You're not trying to be BPN. You're trying to be Colorado Muscle and Joint.
Yeah, I know. And that's the thing, is I was at the time was just I just got confused, not confused, but I was just like, oh, I want to start a supplement company because I want to own my own pre-workout, because I don't like a lot of these pre-workouts. I just want to start my own pre-workout. And that was the reason why I was doing it.
Which you could have just made your own.
Yeah, I know. Instead, I had to go out and spend all this money and create a label and a company. I mean, it was fun. I learned a lot from it, but I don't regret it at all, because I learned so much about even how to operate Colorado Muscle and Joint better. Being like, gosh, totally. Like the vision thing that you said is a huge one, is because when I first started Colorado Muscle and Joint, I feel like I had a pretty good vision, but it's crazy how that vision's morphed so many times. It went from, maybe I'll just do a walk-in clinic, maybe I'll do the rehab stuff. And then And then after that, the last 6 months has been like, do I even want to do this anymore? And now it's morphed to, all right, no, I've got that 10-year vision of owning these, 3 or 4 clinics, having, I see there's still some stuff I'm fine tuning of like, do I want to franchise it? Do I want to do, all that stuff?
Right now, it's just about giving yourself the option to make those decisions in the future.
Right. Yeah.
And you can decide when you get there, but there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the road. And we're seeing this a lot right now with like baby boomers. They've worked their tail off for 30, 40 years to build a business. Never really thinking about one day I might want to sell this thing, and like who's the next buyer going to be?
Yeah,
and so they're scrambling right now, and so you're going to see a lot of businesses just close their doors because they can't figure out what options they have next.
Interesting, yeah.
So just be prepared for that. I think the other thing to unpack too is have a clear vision, but also know that there will come a time when you maybe fall out of love with your business, and you're thinking about quitting. That's even more reason to have the vision so that you can go back to it and get really clear, because generally you're falling out of love with it because you're burnt out. You're doing things that aren't your sweet spot, and you need to be hiring out and delegating to elevate and get into your sweet spot. The more that you can be sitting in the leadership and the growth seats, the more successful the business is going to be. The more time you spend selling people on the front end and setting up freaking Facebook ads and doing stuff like that, the more burnt out, the more risk you have towards burning out, because you're only one dude. You're going to get sick. Life's going to happen. You're not going to feel well. You're going to want to take a vacation. Like all these things happen. You know what I mean? You are dating an amazing woman. You know what I mean? And who knows what path that takes too. You know what I mean? So just give yourself options, man. Have you read the book Built to Sell?
My dad gave it to me a while ago, and it's still sitting in my.
Oh my gosh, dude!
I need to read it.
Read the book. Get it on Audible.
Yeah.
And I apologize in advance because the guy has a terrible upspeak. So just skip the intro. It's the worst intro. If you're listening to this, the guy who wrote that book, like amazing book. Next time, just hire a better voiceover.
Yeah. Is he the one reading it?
He's not the one reading it.
Oh, they just hired a.
It's just like he talks like this. It's like, was that a question or a statement?
Yeah. See, what I do is if I'm going to read a book, I'll just like take a Saturday and I'll just like read an entire book on a Saturday because I'm just like.
You're so emo.
Yeah.
You sit there with your coffee and your beanie.
Because I'm just like, I just want to. But I just want to get it done, read this book now. But so maybe I'll just this Saturday, I'll just read that book.
But
it's not super long, is it?
It's not super long. That's why it's a great audio book. And it's really story based. So it does make for a good, good listen. You know what I mean? But I would highly recommend that because it uses the story of an entrepreneur who's burnt out and he's ready to sell the business because he thinks that's the way to like get rid of all his problems. And he goes and talks to this really wise friend who has sold a bunch of businesses, and his friend basically says, your business is worth nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so they go back to the drawing board. He has to reinvent his business, rethink it, and then has a 5-year plan to work towards an exit, right? And which, at the exit, he had options. Like he could have just kept running the business, right?
Yeah.
But instead he decided to sell it, and he got the number that he wanted, and yada, yada, yada. So I encourage everybody to read that book.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think that's one thing I've thought about more. Because it's only been 2 years, but you can get burnt out in 2 years from doing. Because I think what a big thing was I was treating people not the way I wanted to treat them, but because I was like, oh well, this is what they want, so I'm going to treat them this way instead of being like, hey, this is. So now it's like I do the hour appointments initially, and then 45 minutes after. That's what I love doing. Yeah. And that's why I want to. That's what I love. That's why I get excited when I wake up in the morning. Oh, sweet, I get to spend this much time with this person working on these things that I saw. Versus like, oh man, they're just coming in with adjustment today and they're expecting these huge results from just getting adjusted once. Yep. And it's like, that's like depressing, because it's like, so I think now having that vision has helped me a lot, get a lot more joy in what I do, but also it gets patients better results. They get excited to come in, and,
are you developing a framework for each session on how it should be run and what it looks like?
Yeah. So I kind of have like these 3 phases that I go through. In the first phase, and it's like kind of depending on, because some people you treat them twice and they're like, I'm like 100% better. Yeah. Some people it's like it can take a year depending on what they're dealing with.
That also comes down to what they're doing when they're not with you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you can tell. Just for all the patients out there, I can tell when you haven't been doing your stuff.
You've been doing your rehab.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Because it's so obvious. It's like, because 9 times out of 10, when patients are actually doing the rehab, they get better. Like you're a good example of this. You were coming in consistently, doing your rehab, and you got better.
Yep.
And it's like someone's like, it's been 4 weeks, and they're like, it's still the same. And I'm like, have you been doing the?
No.
I'm not just giving exercises as like, I don't know what else to do. Here's some exercises, you know.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I've done them like maybe twice. I'm just like, okay, well, you know, you got to do them, and that's like the biggest thing is you'll get the results that you want to see.
So you do have a recipe though for how like a session runs, and what it should look like, and what that.
Yeah, so the phases are
and the spacing between sessions and all that.
Yep. So I only do when I do 45-minute moments, I'll just do once a week. I'm not going to ask somebody because you can get so much more done in that 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, versus
than
like
seeing
15,
like doing 3 15-minute appointments. You just don't get as much done. And so I only see patients once a week. I'm not going to be like, hey, I want to see you 3 times a week, and they're all 45 minutes. People are going to be like, I do not have time for that. You know.
Yeah.
So I'll, 45 minutes, and then I have like kind of 3 phases where the first phase is, just kind of controlling the pain and symptoms, getting them under control where they don't have them all the time. It's not waking them up, all this stuff. Obviously, they're still going to have a little bit of pain. And then sometimes, but then phase 2 is more finding the root cause of what's going on. It's like, okay, we managed the pain, so now let's figure out like, why did this happen? Why is this happening? And then what can we do to help fix it? And then phase 3 is really building that independence with them, strengthening them, giving them the knowledge and education so it either doesn't happen again, and they also don't have to rely on me in the future so much when it's like, obviously they have another issue pop up, they'll come to me, but like, if they're like, oh man, my shoulder's starting to feel weird again. Oh, I remember all those exercises Jake gave me. I'm just going to run through those ones that I really liked and do those for a few weeks. And almost every time they're like, hey, I was going to call you, but I remembered your exercises. I did them, and now I feel way better.
And that's what you ultimately want.
Yeah.
Have you written that down? That process, that system?
Mm-hmm.
You do.
Yep,
you have it. I'm just thinking about the next chiro that comes in. So you're like, hey man, this is the Colorado Must Enjoy It way.
And the clinical marker, they help me with that, and so now I have it all written out, and it's like it's just on my computer. So I just print it out, and I can just give that to somebody like, hey, here's. And what I want to do too is systemize each issue that comes in too. It's like, here's what we run through with like a shoulder pain, because
there's a lot of common stuff.
Everybody's different, but at the same time, we're not that different. A shoulder's a shoulder. You know,
we're sitting here all the time.
Yeah,
our scaps are rolled forward.
Right, and obviously, different sports you demand different things of the body, so you can get different things. But a shoulder's a shoulder. I mean, if you get like a 55-year-old guy who's had like 3 rotator cuff tears and stuff, obviously that shoulder's not the same as a 26-year-old who's active and healthy. So there's different things you got to look for. But most of the time, you operate the same way with the shoulder that you do with one person versus another person. Obviously, there's different like rib cage sizes and shapes that alter your shoulder mechanics and stuff, but not that much though. I mean, the shoulder moves the same way. They all protract, retract.
Yep.
Move up and down.
It's good. I just asked because I think that's a huge gap early on. I actually just wrote an article about that, about documenting early and often before you're ready to hire that next person.
Right.
So, because if you don't do that, what ends up happening is you bring somebody on, and then it's like, okay, you're just going to watch me do it. It's like, okay, well, one, that's awkward. I got to be in the room with you.
Yeah, right.
And then 2, it's like somehow they're just going to magically absorb. That takes way longer to learn that way versus, hey, here's a framework for how we do it. You're going to then watch me do it.
Yeah.
You're going to then go practice it. I'm going to watch you do it. And then great, you're on your way.
Well, that's nice about having that framework is, the framework may not be exactly what you do every time because it can be, but that's obviously, you're a doctor. You should be able to critically think in a moment and know when to be like, okay, I probably shouldn't needle this time, or I probably shouldn't,
Training's the same way, right? It's like knowing when to progress and regress somebody.
Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. And so, but having that framework is really helpful. It's like, okay, because then it relaxes the other doctor too, knowing like, okay, there's the 3 phases. This is what our goal is. I don't have to like try to fix everything in these first 2 visits. It's just like, let's get everything under control.
And the patient appreciates that too.
Yeah.
Right? Because now you can explain to them, hey, here's what we're doing, right? And this is how this progresses over time. And clients want to be able to see to the other side of like, okay, great. Now what? What's next? Because if they're not seeing progress, then they start to question, like, is this valuable? The money that I'm paying for this?
Right. Well, then you can lay it out like what I didn't do before, which I don't know why I didn't do. I wouldn't ever tell patients how long I thought it would take. And people would be like, "So, am I done?" And I'd be like, "I should probably start telling people like." And so now I tell people like, typically I see this and this resolved in 5 to 6 visits or 9 to 12 visits. Or
do you attach a guarantee to that too? You might even consider doing an anti-guarantee.
Well, yeah, because that's the thing is what
you might even say like, hey, 8 to 12 visits, but I can't guarantee it because
Well,
I only see you for 45 minutes a week.
Well, that's the thing. You do like, technically, I think legally, you can't really guarantee anything with like medical stuff. Like, as a chiropractor, I think I get in trouble for guaranteeing I can get you better.
People want to know, like, am I going to be better? And you
Mm-hmm.
just tell them, like, I can't guarantee that because I can't guarantee you're going to
Mm-hmm.
do what's needed of you outside of this session.
Yeah, I don't know if that's actually a legal thing, but just
don't confuse me saying a guarantee, like, which is a marketing term,
Yeah.
with like, hey, I'm guaranteeing you're going to be healed or
Yeah.
cancer free
Right,
or whatever
yeah.
it is, you know?
well, and like, yeah, and I mean, I think that's good too because I obviously can't guarantee that they get better because sometimes it's like 9 to 12 visits. Yeah, hopefully, but like sometimes it takes a year. That's why I tell them like most commonly I see this resolved in 9 to 12 visits.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a guarantee, though.
You think?
It is. Yeah, it is good.
Okay,
You're just it's implied.
Okay, you think that's good though, or
Yeah, I just think that you could give it more teeth by just saying like
But sometimes it takes longer.
it takes longer, and here's the reasons why it generally takes longer. Is because people don't do
The
the
exercise.
rehab
Yeah, that's
exercises outside of this
Mhm.
because they're also thinking like, I'm about to spend whatever $150 a session, right? That's a lot. Okay, they're doing the math. That's 10 sessions. Like, I'm gonna spend $1,500 to get this thing fixed. That there's this subconscious like price throttle in their head that they're trying to manage. You know what I mean? But if they know, hey, he's telling me he's going to give me the things that no other doctor ever gives me. You've just created a category of one. Okay, there's a reason that he's $150.
Right.
Is because I'm actually going to get better and I'm going to have exercises that I can use forever to heal this problem.
Yeah, that's good. I think putting emphasis on the exercises because that's where I see people fail the most. Is they don't
100%.
do the exercises and they're not getting better. And I'm like, well, did you do the 3 exercises I gave you? I know it takes 10 minutes. I mean, I don't say this, but it takes 10 minutes out of their day most of the time.
Yeah,
It's
you should say it though. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to take you 10 minutes a
10
day.
minutes a day, just do them and then, and focus on them. Don't be like, okay, just like doing quick exercise or whatever. Cause some people do that too. It's like,
This is the hardest part about the health and fitness industry is everybody
Mm-hmm.
wants the simple one pill that they can take,
I
right?
know.
And unfortunately, the industry has taken advantage of that, right? 6 weeks to abs and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
take this pill and you take this test booster and you're going to look
Right.
like this guy.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Clearly on so much gear. But, so dude, I'm proud of you. You've come like just in the last 4 months, you've made huge progress in just how you're thinking about this long term. So
appreciate it.
just keep going. Sitting from your seat that you're in right now, what advice would you give to new entrepreneurs? Like, what do you wish you would have done sooner?
I think I wish I would have developed the vision sooner and had a clear picture of what I want to do. Instead of like what you said earlier, I was just like, I'm going to be the best at this. But I had no sales strategy. I had no marketing strategy. I was like, as soon as I open my doors, everybody's going to magically know that I'm here. Everybody's going to come
Just
in.
totally banking on your good looks.
Yeah. Hey ladies, Fort Collins. That's so funny. No, so the biggest piece of advice I would give is capturing that vision early,
And be bold. I would say be bold with it too. Like, don't think small.
Yeah, and write it down. You know what I mean? And like like what you said, come back to it every 3 months or whatever, just to make sure that you're sticking to it, or that making sure that hey, maybe I need to alter this in the vision, or and then just doing stuff. The biggest thing I think is just daily action. Doing one, like that book called The One Thing. Just what's one thing I can do today that's going to get me closer to that vision or that goal. And having like not only like the 10-year goal, but having a 5-year, a 2-year, a 1-year, a week goal, even, to where it's like, okay, what's one thing I can do today to accomplish my week goal? What's one thing I can do this week to accomplish my month goal? What's one thing I can do this month to accomplish this year goal that I'm going towards? I think that's the biggest thing, is just the discipline of that, is just, when you wake up and having a routine every morning is big for me. As soon as I get out of my routine, I'm a very structured and routine based person. So if I get out of my routine, everything else kind of falls apart in my day. And so building a morning routine, I think all great entrepreneurs would say that, having habits that you do every day. And like you get up really early, you come work out. And like I've seen you do that ever since I've known you, and so it's like, and you find people like, and you're one of the people I look up to for entrepreneurship and all that stuff. So it's it's like one of those things where it's, you got to have daily, even if it's like just making sure you have the same thing for breakfast and you do the same through routine. You know, you breakfast, gym, come home,
tan, laundry.
Yeah.
GTL.
Yeah. But like, I just think having that routine helps a lot, gets your mind clear, and you're like, hey, you know, I'm on track today. Versus if you just like, I don't know what, you don't wake up the same time every day. It's like, okay, sometimes I wake up at 5, sometimes I wake up at 8, and it's like, you got to have that structure, because I think that helps me at least.
Yeah.
But also just, like I said, doing the discipline of really writing out the one thing you can do today.
And I think the question they use in that, they call it the framing question. What's the one thing that I can do so that by doing so everything else becomes easier and necessary?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great question. I think too, it's unspoken, but finding a good partner or consultant to work with to actually fill in the gaps where you don't have skills, sales, marketing, process, systems, yada, 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 because man, you'll spin your wheels for a really long time.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out something that has already been figured out.
You know? Well, and that's the thing I think too, I'd give advice is make investments and stuff like that early on, because I look at, man, where would I have been if I would have been just like, even 4 months ago, been like, I'm going to pull the trigger on this clinical marketing people, you know, or just look more into that or run ads. And, because the earlier you start, it seems like a lot of money and stuff like that up front. And, obviously you got to look at, because the nice thing is I probably wouldn't have done that if I didn't personally know somebody who went through them and made 20 grand in 1 month working with them. It's just like, oh my gosh, you know? Yeah, I would say just investing in people who know more than you about things that are going to help grow your business. You know,
yeah, some of the best podcasts we've had. We had my buddy Evan Worsley on here, who's a electrical contractor, has a business called Conduct All, and they went from $4.5 million in revenue to $10 million in 1 year. I was like, dude, what did you do? He's like, hired a consultant. Consultant told me what I needed to do. We invested in some software, and we had somebody start doing estimates. And we booked more jobs because we were properly pricing them. We were faster with our turnaround, and we sold more revenue that year.
I know. Well, it's just like working with clinical marketing people. It's like, it took me a bunch of time at the beginning, cost that money, whatever. But now it's like within 3 patients, I can, if I, potentially make all that back. So it's like, but you just got to do it's never going to be like, oh, if I just hire these people, it's a given. It's like there's still a lot of work you have to do, and you have to close the deals. You have to do all this stuff. But then again, if you can hire somebody who does that for you, then you have more time to.
But it's also like that's the part of entrepreneurship that nobody wants to do. Is it's going to be work, like regardless. Like you want to know how to do that stuff. So you can go learn the hard way. You can use all your experience, or you can find somebody from the outside to come in and impart that wisdom on you and help you bridge the gap. So
for sure. And so advice would just be capture the vision early and revisit it every 3 months, like you said, and then investing in people who know more than you about especially sales and marketing. I think is a big thing. And then just focusing each day on the one thing you can do that day, even if it's just calling one person. It's like do something that pushes the needle in the right direction versus be like, I had a really great week this week. I'm going to take 2 days. I'm going to take this whole weekend and not do anything. I'm not even going to think about work. And it's like, you got to have a balance, but at the same time, like early on, you got to be unbalanced to
the season.
Yeah. And I just think like having a balanced life is like I like the idea of it, but also as an entrepreneur, I would think your life is very unbalanced a lot of the times. In a good way, I think, because it helps develop you a lot. So then that unbalanced feeling starts to become your new balance, where it's like
you just get better at it.
Yeah, but I don't think you have to sacrifice your family and your relationships and all this stuff. And I think when people think, when they hear unbalanced, like, oh, he's just never hanging out with his family or anything. That's like, that's not.
It's lifestyle design, baby.
Yeah, I just get rid of all the other distractions. Like, I don't play video games. I don't really watch a lot of TV.
I don't go to the bars and party.
Yeah, I don't go out on the weekends. And like, that's me being unbalanced, and, but I make my priorities are, my business, my family, my relationship with Riley, all that stuff is like my priority. So I spend all the time I could be playing video games or going out to the bars. I get rid of that because that doesn't help me. And I focus on the relationships that are going to help me not only grow as a person, but also grow as a business owner. Because how many times I've had conversations with someone I never thought would help me in a business way, or in just personal development. All of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was a really good thing they said, and I need to remember that. And just because I wasn't like, I just want to go home and lay on the couch. you know, and there's like time for that, you know, but
I think when you find your sweet spot and you're really stepping into your business, doing the thing that you want to do, and you get control over it. You know, I keep reflecting on this little heuristic over here, but you know, you start to get a handle on the 8 core concepts of your business, and you feel like it's not controlling you.
Yeah.
It becomes fun, man. It's just a game.
I know.
And I love that part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah. And that's why, you know, I want to get to, because right now it's just like that, you know, just grinding a lot and it's just a lot of work, but again, if you don't have that vision, then it's like you lose steam real fast.
Well, you could also be grinding on 60 adjustments a day too.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Yeah.
So just take your pick.
Yeah.
Hey, so if people, you know, loved your story, they want to connect to you, what's the best social platforms for them to follow you?
Yeah,
on?
so Instagram, Dr. Jake Huebner, which Huebner's Huebner, so it doesn't look like Huebner.
Yeah, because I always say Huebner,
Yeah.
like I did when I opened the podcast. Such an idiot.
I didn't even notice. I just don't even notice anymore. There, and then
Are you on TikTok?
yeah, but I haven't
Dude,
posted
you need to
in like
get
years.
on
Yeah, I think
TikTok.
it's called the my name on there. I think it's called the Muscle Chiro. So you know,
Surprised you didn't wear a sleeveless.
Yeah.
Are you on LinkedIn too?
yeah, I am.
Okay, I think you could be super valuable.
Yeah, we
on
talked
there
a
as
little about LinkedIn a couple weeks ago.
just because your ticket price and who you work with, you know, there's tons of people in the corporate world who were athletes who understand the value of paying for that type of stuff. It's no different than the gym business too. So
Yeah.
okay, so LinkedIn, Muscle Chiro on TikTok.
Yeah, and then at Dr. Jake Huebner, and then if you guys want to email me with questions, you know, Dr. Huebner at coloradomjc.com.
Sweet, dude. We'll drop those in the show notes.
And that's Dr. DrHuebner at Colorado MJC. Yeah.
Well, in a year or two, man, we'll have you come back and we'll hear like all the cool stories about how you're just crushing it.
Cool. Love
Thanks
it,
for
man.
being here, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate it.